Cuphead, probably one of the more interesting games out there in recent years, with not only a lot of hand-drawn animation, but it also spawned a ton of internet discussion that really didn't do anything other than giving me a blasted headache. It was an amazing game and the one that required a lot of time, patience, passion, even some bust-up controllers being thrown against the wall. Whoa! Really, my only complaint with the game is actually we still haven't gotten the DLC yet for it. Then again, with the world being on fire, I suppose that's actually a pretty common thing to understand nowadays. It wasn't until recently that we've gotten Cuphead back in the limelight with a new animated show that was released on Netflix. And if the title didn't give it away, well, I don't think it's a bad show, I think it does have some issues that I do have with it. And thus, with that, I have now initiated the usual fighting on the internet, that I dare say that something that is good has problems.
So what if I am?
Contrary to what people believe, I'm going to be positive with the show quite a bit, because, shock of all shocks, I do like it. From an animation level, there's a lot of amazing work put into this show, and a lot of care and time was put into the squash animation, most notably for the devil. How his body would twist and coil, transform, bob up and down. Its really fluid animation has always been a treat on the eyes, as well as making the character be a real standout throughout the series. There was a lot of time and care put into the animation, and especially the camera work. There would be a lot of scenes where the camera would be almost continuous and make the scenes all the more dramatic and dynamic. The most notable was when King Dice is being accosted by the devil. What with the camera pan and almost continuous shots, the longer you can keep a shot going on, the more memorable it will be. At least to me. Another memorable factor of the show is the facial expressions. Again, the fact that I can remember these facial expressions so clearly in my head is a very good choice for the animation and characterization. Throw in the fact that during the production, obviously he had a lot of time and care put into making the characters were, aside from the obvious gags, consistent, is something that helped kept me involved with the show. I know a lot of people will complain about consistency with character models during animation, and there is some merit to that, but when going off model, Cuphead really does a good job when it wants to convey something really out there to the audience. Moments like these, when done on purpose, do help strengthen the audience that this is something you should pay attention to. Whether it be for a story beat, a joke, or anything the creators just want to express. And to be completely fair, there are times when there are mistakes in the animation, like when King Dice is looking in the mirror and the reflection is clearly wrong. I will fully admit that this is a nitpick, because the way the framing is, we wouldn't see the three face on King Dice's head in the mirror. But it's an obvious for a gag for how the scene is being played. But that's really the only mistake I could really nitpick about the animation. Otherwise, it's extremely solid. One of my favorite times is when the devil was painting the fence. And then Miss Chalice's song.
God damn it, I love this shit!
It's obvious the animation takes a lot of inspiration from the Fletcher-style cartoons from ages past, and has that stretch and charm to it. Hell, there's even film grain to the animation that I noticed on my HD TV when I initially watched this. And as a side note, there's definitely a lot of love letters made towards classic animation. While not one for one, they still exhibit the elements of it, and it's not in your face like a lot of referential nods and winks are in other forms of animation. Unfortunately, there is some bad news about the animation that I didn't like. That's the inclusion of 3D animation.
It's opinion, not news!
Normally, I'm not opposed to the mixture, but when there was just something off about its inclusion in the Cuphead show. You know, Cuphead, the game that had everything be a 2D hand-drawn animation, that was the selling point of the game. I mean, call me an old coot if you want, but I just prefer to see straight-up 2D animation. This isn't a fault with the show, merely a preference that I have, especially considering that Cuphead's game was pretty much all about that. So, the story of the Cuphead show. Well, the story is probably the biggest weakness to me. Now, when it comes to adaptations, well, Netflix hasn't had the best track record.
Get away from me!
To be completely fair, on the animation side of Netflix, I tend to enjoy a lot of their animated adaptations a fair bit more than the live-action versions. I'm not saying that Cuphead's on the same level as Death Note or Cowboy Bebop. This show doesn't do anything that actually go against the main premise of Cuphead, and the characters aren't out of character. for the most part. Then again, there really wasn't a lot of story with the original game. It was mostly focused on the presentation and gameplay, which is fine. Sure, there were small character beats that you could read when you lost to a boss, but it wasn't a story-heavy focused game. That being said, with the type of game that Cuphead is, you essentially open yourself up to a lot of interpretation and can pretty much do anything with the plot of the animation. And to be completely fair, the original creators of the game did have a hand in making this entire show possible. Cuphead, while branching itself off the original source material, it takes a different route with the same deal with the devil, where the iconic Cuphead and Mugman go to a carnival.
Evil.
With Cuphead losing a game of skee-ball and the devil taking his soul as a result. But hijinks ensue and the two Cups manage to destroy the carnival and get away with Cuphead's soul. And the devil doesn't do anything. At least not for a few episodes. That's really my biggest issue I have with the story. How it's framed and how the story proceeds from that. Basically pacing. Now, aside from the fact that skee-ball took the place of a game of craps like in the original game, the issue with the starting incident is it kind of takes away from the original concept of Cuphead's character flaw. In the game, Cuphead's loss at craps was him taking a risk when he didn't need to, and lost because the dice were against him. Cuphead's fatal flaw is his impulsiveness, and craps was the perfect game to show that. And in the show, we do see Cuphead being impulsive, but doesn't have that same punch like it did in the game. In the animation, Cuphead loses because of Mugman.
You fucking idiot.
Now, this may not seem like a real big change. After all, Cuphead is still taking a risk that he shouldn't have taken, but his loss was caused by his reckless behavior and inability to think ahead in the game. Meanwhile, it's on Mugman pushing Cuphead to throw the ball. Literally. Cuphead even says in the scene that it's Mugman's fault, but after this episode, it doesn't show up in the show again. This really isn't a big deal, but what is that the devil essentially takes a bit of a back seat after the Carnival burns down. It doesn't really go after Cuphead. It isn't until the purposely annoying accountant brings it up to the devil that he actually takes an active role to go after the cup. Cuphead the show takes a more episodic manner with the show, where most of the episodes are self-contained with their own little stories.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
A lot of shows that I enjoy are episodic in nature, but Cuphead also has this underlying story with the devil wanting to get Cuphead's soul. But the episodes that focus in it are rather limited, and for a 12-episode show, it does irk me a little, especially since in the King Dice episode, we do learn that the devil is annoyed with Cuphead getting away, but he isn't doing anything other than just sitting in a bathtub with cucumbers on his eyes.
You lazy bum.
I also don't really care for the more inactive approach for the characters. In the game, there was a reason for why Cuphead would fight the inhabitants of the island, in order to trade for his and his brother's souls. There's nothing like that in the show. This is my preference, and I'll greatly admit that. But I prefer a more proactive story and cast, especially when the source material had a lot more interesting hook and a more forward-moving story. It's just weird to see that the brothers, after pissing off the devil, don't really do anything to prevent him from taking Cuphead's soul, or the devil himself. Like, it's shown in the series that the devil knows where Cuphead lives, and after the invisible sweater was thrown on the devil, well, that's it for that plot line. To give context, at one point in the series, Mugman does manage to knit an invisible sweater for Cuphead that stops the devil from taking his soul. But in the episode after that, the two brothers throw the sweater onto the devil, and then the sweater's gone forever. So the devil doesn't do anything after that to go after Cuphead and claim his soul. I'm not saying that the direction the show took is bad, but I feel like this plot that they have there feels a little bit half-baked to me, especially since it has roots in the first episode. It's not like I'm expecting Cuphead to be the greatest animated tale of all time, but I was kind of expecting to see a little bit more cohesion with the plot that the show had, and have a little bit more tie-ins with the game in that regard. That being said, the thing that saves the show in my eyes from this is the characters. They're charming. But I will say that the leads, Cuphead and Mugman, did get a little grating.
My name is Cuphead. I like roller coasters and hot dogs and tilt-a-whirl and hot dogs and flying swings and hot dogs and throwing up in roller coasters in that order.
However, that's more by design, especially when there's other characters that they play off of, and even each other. It's a simple old cartoon trope where the main character of an animation is an innocent one, but has energy that does get on a person's nerves. And for young kids, that energy and impulsiveness washes off like water in a duck. But for an old coot like me, well, I guess you might as well start calling me Elder Kettle for a reason. I also have to give special note that they did incorporate a number of the bosses in the game as part of the cast, at least to some degree, and others were just basically glorified cameos. Like, at the end of the jungle episode, you've got Grim Matchstick appearing, but apparently they were turned into a mother, I think? It's really ambiguous with that. Like, I'm pretty sure Grim was a guy, and he only had one head to start off with. I don't know, it's hard for me to tell on this point. Then there's the Root Pack, which the only thing I have to raise an eyebrow at is that they changed Sal's design to make him look more thuggish. This isn't a complaint about that. In the original game, Sal was just a potato. Giving a character more defined character traits and accessories is always a good thing. Just something to take note of from the source material. Really though, if I had to select two characters that really stole the show, however, it'd be the Devil and Miss Chalice. Not only because did they have some of the best character moments and scenes in the show in my opinion, but also because of their interaction with Cuphead and Mugman.
You know, Cuphead, you're not so bad after all.
Thanks.
You're not wearing the sweater!
All right, who are you two working for?
Working? We don't have jobs. Yeah, we're just a couple of dum-dums. Sip it, ding-dong. She don't gotta know we're a couple of dum-dums.
I'm not saying that Cuphead and Mugman didn't have their moments to shine, but it's mostly a preference to me for this. Still though, I gotta give props to the voice acting in this show. They certainly do make the characters have their energy and the voices really do fit. Cuphead's voiced by True Valentino. I'm not too familiar with his work as a voice actor, save for him apparently being in Psychonauts 2? Huh. But he certainly has a lot of talent to make this work. And Mugman is voiced by Frank Tadano, who I'm a little more familiar with.
I was wondering when it would appear. Now, the weight of her guilt over her baby boy-turned-criminal will oppress her soul. I'm gonna bleed you dry, kid.
Oh, there's a Japanese dub of the show? Oh, let's see who's voicing which characters in it. Wait a minute. Oh, are you kidding me? Man, first Five Nights at Freddy's and now this. What the hell is going on with my life? Fun little fact. Natsuki Hane and Ensho Ono, the Japanese voice actors for Cuphead and Mugman respectively, actually played Cuphead on a livestream where they played the characters during said livestream. I don't know, I just thought it was a fun fact to talk about.
Well, do you want to come with me into the deep, dark woods?
Is there a third, less terrifying option?
The comedy is probably, at best, a mixed bag to me. And I want to preface that it's mostly due to my own subjectivity with comedy. I'm not saying that the jokes are bad, just not to my specific taste. To me, I didn't find a lot of them to be, extremely funny. I found them entertaining, but I didn't find myself laughing most of the time. You may disagree with that, and that's perfectly fine. I will say there was a lot to find entertaining, and a lot of the jokes that I did enjoy were of the more slapstick and physical comedy variety, where the animation is really on point for that. Like, probably my favorite gag in the show is... I don't know. For me, whenever I see something obviously over the top and such very inappropriate music playing, it just makes me smile and laugh. And then there's the Ribby and Croak scenes.
You saying you're better than me?
So what if I am?
It's really the physical humor that really appealed to me in the show and what got me laughing most of the time. And I can really appreciate that the show knows that's a cartoon and plays to its strength. It's not gonna let things like logic and physical imitation stop it from doing a joke. It's really more the pun and written jokes that really didn't elicit that many chuckles from me.
It's Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star!
I don't know what to say. It just didn't work for me most of the time.
You know what's worse than finding half a worm in your apple?
What?
Falling in a sewer. I saw a smile.
You most certainly did not.
It's not bad per se, but it's not something that I find all that funny. Hell, I find that the previous clip to be more entertaining as a character interaction between Cuphead and the devil than I do find it to be actual funny stuff. And that's assuming that actually is a joke, because I can't really tell. Maybe I'm misunderstanding here, because there are good jokes in the show, and I'm chalking it up that it's more of a me issue than a problem with the show itself. The character interactions can be entertaining. That is a fact, at least in my opinion, but it's the more intentionally written jokes that fall a little bit to me. I don't know what to tell you guys, that's just how I feel. I'm not going to say that Cuphead the show is a masterpiece, but I will say it was a very entertaining show, and I'd be denying the show its good quality and the hard work that was put into it if I said otherwise. Just some examples here, the score for the show was composed by Ego Plum. I think I said that right. Anyway, it's a nostalgic throwback to the cartoon music from the early 1930s mixed with modern jazz, and I just love that. You got Jim Sopper and Dan Haskett. God, I hope I am pronouncing these right. And they were the character designers for the show, and with their retro design really fitting for the feel that the animation was going for. Adam P., who is known for his direction on the SpongeBob SquarePants series, was also the supervising director. And most importantly, you've got Chad and Jared Moldenhauer, the co-creators of the original game. You've got people who really do care about their craft as well as the original creators on board, which I really love to see when it comes to adaptations of games, books, comics, whatever. It adds an additional personal touch to the show, and I can really respect it for that. Most of the issues that I have for the Cuphead show aren't really the show's faults. This is all opinion-based, and I will say that my opinion can be flawed. But hey, I'm human, and this is how I feel about the show. I will not say the show is bad. I will never say that, at least if Season 2 is good. But what I will say is that to my personal taste, it's not what I was expecting. But just because it doesn't fit my personal taste, that doesn't mean it's a terrible thing. But hey, that's just me. What do you guys think? Leave me a comment down below telling me your thoughts on the show. Be sure to give it a like, and I appreciate you guys watching this. I'm MangaKamen, thanks for watching, and remember to examine your fandom. Bye bye!